area, we have 9 millimeter of probing depth, so still we have the remnants in the buccal apical aspect. So I initiated my surgery contralateral to the defect. Meaning, if you have a defect in the distal side, you're going to mesial within the same tooth. But in this case, you have in the mesial, so you go distal. So care must be taken to respect your initial incision line. If you make a mistake here, please don't blame my surgical technique. Because if you're not respecting the soft tissue, you're going to experience post-surgical gingival recession. But if you want to preserve every detail, then you're going to preserve the marginal integrity and papilla integrity. So this is also easier to clean the defect area by just removing the granulation tissue. You see the perfect access to the defect. And you can see now we have to follow, and you can clearly see this is a rather hard case with the prosthetic reconstruction. If I make a mistake, the prosthetic work needs to be redone. We are cleaning the root surface. After that, we are applying the prep gel onto the root surface, waiting for 2 minutes, drying the root surface, and applying the enamel matrix derivative, amelogenes, onto the root surface. Always I try to perform this on a dry root surface to have a maximum precipitation of amelogenes on the root surface. And now, you don't need to learn complex sutures under the contact. You're just going to perform your very well-known, simple interrupted suture for your single buccal vertical incision. So I always recommend you to start not on the coronal aspect, because if you make a mistake, again, you're going to tear the tissue and you're going to create post-surgical recession. That's why your first anchorage is in the middle of the keratinized tissue, engaging keratinized tissue to keratinized tissue, and after there is no residual tension, then you can go on very coronal, performing the last suture. It's also important to observe this primary closure in that area and know even post-surgical recession in that area. So, what happened to my computer? Okay, this is the 1 week of healing. This is the really nice dynamic image of the wound healing. You see the really great primary closure along the single buccal vertical releasing incision. And let's see after 1 year of time. Perfect outcome. And when you measure the probing depth, it's 3 millimeter and there is no bleeding on probing, and you see how thin is the gingival margin and the prosthetic junction. If you create 0.5 millimeter of recession, the root surface will be visible, and then you're going to continue with, again, redone the prosthetic work. So I'd like to show you how the real-time probing is. You don't go no more than 3 millimeter, and you have a very nice, firm gingival structure with no papilla loss in that area. So this is a very good news. The second good news is, if you are hopefully regenerating the area, you don't need to go for orthodontic treatment or prosthodontic adjustment. After 1 year of time, you see that the tooth realigns itself by probably obtaining new sharper fibers, and you can see the realignment of the tooth without any orthodontic treatment. And this is the radiographic comparison from baseline in 1 year. And due to the implant reasons, I took the CBCT. I didn't do any re-entry for this case. It's not necessary. And you can see the bone field in the CBCT image. And of course, as a periodontist, I am trained to save the teeth, but unfortunately, we have to admit that sometimes, due to the endodontic problems or the other issues, we are losing the tooth. And of course, after this, we need to know the sequences of the event after the tooth extraction. And if we don't perform any preventive measures, we are going to lose the papillary height. But most of all, if we are taking another look, another dimension, we are losing almost up to 6 millimeters if we don't perform any preventive measures. So if you make a crestal incision and you reflect your flap to place the implant, first we need to perform hard tissue reconstruction, and then we're going to perform a soft tissue reconstruction. So we all know that the sequence of the events after tooth extraction is pretty basic and simple. If you have a thin buccal bone, you're going to lose it if you don't do anything. But there's a great paper from Byrne Group. There are also differences in different morphotypes. So if you have more than a millimeter in buccal bone thickness, you're not going to lose the entire thickness of the buccal bone. So you have a 4-hole contained defect for your biomaterials. And this is very important to know, especially when we are applying some of the clinical scenarios in the tooth loss. So basically, I am performing implant as a periodontist very simple way. If I have a tooth that needs to be extracted and has an acute lesion, I never do rich preservation measures. I extract the tooth and leave it heal and form a native bone. Then I do the GVR. And if I have a possibility to preserve the ridge, then I'm preserving the ridge. This is the first step. The second one is my favorite. If it is indicated, I love to place an immediate implant and to provide a really and protect the natural mucosal appearance. The last scenario is the thing that I really don't like the most, because if the tooth has been extracted by someone else and they didn't do any preventive measures, you're going to end up with the atrophic ridge, so you need an extensive bone fragmentation. So you can see my time is not going to help me to cover everything, every critical scenario, so I'm going to focus today only my favorite choice of immediate implant. So immediate implant is of course reducing the surgical procedure, but it's not always advantageous. If you make a mistake in the positioning of the implant, you have a great risk of creating soft tissue dehiscence around implants. But as a periodontist, it doesn't matter for me if I have an implant under my mucosa or if I have a root under my periodontium, under my gingiva. I am interested in preserving the soft tissue profile in that sense. So I brought you a very, very extreme case and another look for the immediate implant placement. This is a rather off-road case, off-label use of the immediate implant, but I would like to share with you to have some ideas. As you can see, it looks like we have some tooth structure, but I changed the angulation, so you see that the tooth has been cracked, and you see the beauty of soft tissues is trying to cover everything. And when we take a look to the CBCT, oh, this is a perfect and very nice didactic case to explore. Why? Look at this. I have a chronic lesion. I have a very bad neighbor, sinus floor. I have a thick coronal buccal plate, but when I go to the middle third, it's less than a millimeter. I have the crack zone below the gingiva, and also you see that there is no place to place an immediate implant according to the right clinical axis. Of course, if you are thinking like a carpenter-style dentistry, you can always go in that direction. But if I place the implant like that, my prosthodontic friend in Turkey, they're going to shoot me. So I really don't want to happen, I want to live. That's why I'm going to discuss the opportunity if you have an hourglass-shaped remote. Why we are always limited to these triangular bones? Maybe we are going to get anchorage from the lateral bones. So if you make an osteotomy in that area, but of course, you need to first extract the tooth in one piece. Trust me, this is the most success in that surgery, because mostly you're breaking those type of teeth. Trust me, this is the best thing ever I did in that surgery. in one piece. I extracted also the lesion, but this is the opportunity. I have 3 millimeter in width, and if I place 4.3 millimeter implant, so I'm going to engage the lateral walls for anchorage. So I place my implant on the buckle, and I love to follow the principles of Dennis Tarnock. Because normally, in periodontology world, we are all interested in periodontology, and you see from the stage, it's just a cliche. I always love to place connective tissue graft on the buckle. There is no need if you have enough gingival thickness. You don't need to go always to palate to place the